Welcome to Reinventing Broadcast, where AI meets content. Hosted by Ben Anchor. Let's dive in.
Hello, and welcome back to Broadcast Media, The Inside Track. I'm Ben Anchor, and today we're tackling something that's been sitting uncomfortably in every broadcast conversation I've had this January.
I'm Rihanna, and I have a suspicion this episode is going to hit some nerves.
It absolutely should, because I've just come back from reading PwC's 29th Global CEO Survey released at Davos last week, and the data is brutal.
How brutal are we talking?
56% of companies are getting nothing out of AI, not struggling, not underperforming, nothing, zero value, and only 10 to 12%, roughly 1 in 10, are seeing actual benefits on the revenue or cost side.
Wait, so we're 2 years into the AI revolution, and 9 out of 10 companies are either treading water or drowning.
Exactly. And Mohammed Kande, the global chairman of PwC, said something that perfectly captures what I've been hearing from broadcast leaders. He said, "Somehow AI moves so fast that people forgot that the adoption of technology requires going back to the basics."
The basics. What does that even mean in the context of broadcast AI?
I'm glad you asked, because this is where broadcast is uniquely exposed. I was speaking with a broadcast technology leader recently, and he said something that really opened my eyes. It was all to do with change management and how the industry is approaching tackling this juggernaut properly.
That's incredibly candid.
It is. And we discussed creating a centre of excellence or a formal AI unit to coordinate everything, but that would actually require the whole organisation to align, and it's tough even get the corporate verticals talking to each other right now.
So you're saying that they are not creating AI units and centres of excellence?
From what I've seen, that's the real problem. Most broadcast organisations aren't even attempting structured coordination. What's happening instead is chaos. The news division is trying one vendor. Playout engineering is experimenting with another. Advertising sales is running its own pilots. Facilities management is looking at something else. There's no reference point, no best practice that's shared across the whole organisation, no joined-up roadmap, no governance, no ethics framework, just isolated experiments that never connect to each other or to actual business outcomes.
That's actually worse than having bad silos.
Well, there you go. At least bad silos have discipline. You'd have one team's best practice, even if it's isolated. But what we're seeing in broadcast is different. It's ad hoc. It's uncoordinated. And the reason it's failing is almost entirely change management.
Change management. That's not a sexy topic.
No, it's not. But it's where the real failure happens. I've talked about this before. A lot of AI initiatives fail, but it's not because the technology doesn't work. It's because organisations don't manage the human side of change. And in broadcast, that failure is compounded because you have no unified leadership around what AI even means for the organisation.
What do you mean by the human side?
Think about it. If you're a broadcast operator who's been running a playout system for 20 years, and suddenly there's an AI recommendation system saying, change the schedule based on real-time viewership. What's your first question?
Who approved this? Do I trust it? What happens if it's wrong?
Exactly, and without change management, without governance, without clear authority and accountability structures, that system gets ignored. Or worse, it creates conflict between teams. The news director doesn't trust it, the engineer doesn't understand it, the finance team has no idea if it's working, and nobody's taken the time to help anyone through that transition.
But if you had a centre of excellence, presumably you'd have that conversation.
You absolutely should. But here's what's actually happening. Broadcast organisations are scared to create formal AI units because they think it signals we're replacing jobs or we're doing something radical. So instead of addressing that head on, they just let vendors and technologists run experiments in the shadows. No conversation with the teams who actually operate the systems. That's the change management failure.
So organisations are avoiding the hard conversation.
I think so. And that avoidance is costing them everything, because without that conversation, you have no way to build trust. You have no way to handle exceptions. You have no way to say, here's how humans remain in control. You just have isolated pilots that nobody understands or believes in.
You mentioned this was like the MIT study. Can you connect those dots?
The MIT research found 95% of generative AI pilots fail, and Candy's diagnosis from PwC confirms why. Companies skip the foundations. They struggle with the clean data conversation. They bolt on the process redesign. And they absolutely underestimate the change management work. In broadcast specifically, what we're missing is a reference point. Without a centre of excellence or coordinated AI strategy, each division is asking, how do we use AI independently? Nobody's asking, how do we use AI across the entire organisation in a way that serves our business model?
What does clean data mean for a broadcaster?
It means knowing what you actually have. Most mid-sized broadcasters struggle to map their own operational data across divisions. They don't know if their schedule metadata lives in 3 different systems that don't talk to each other. They don't know if their viewership data is accurate. They don't know if their content library is properly tagged. And you cannot train AI on chaos, you just can't.
So they've hired vendors, paid for AI solutions, but the data feeding those solutions is broken to begin with.
Yes. And it's not even innocently overlooked. It's the legacy of linear broadcasting. For 40 years, you could run a broadcast centre with a schedule printed on paper and phone calls. You didn't need integrated data systems because everything was analog and manual, and humans just figured it out. Now suddenly, you're trying to feed that same operational mess into machine learning models. It doesn't work.
What about business processes?
Same story. Broadcast organisations have processes optimised for Millennium television. They have sign-off chains designed for waterfall workflows. They have approval hierarchies that made sense when content took 3 months to produce. Now you're telling a chief content officer, for example, that an AI system is suggesting real-time schedule changes based on engagement prediction. And the business process doesn't exist to handle it. There's no governance. There's no way to override it clearly. There's no trust mechanism. So the recommendation gets ignored.
And the AI sits there unused.
Exactly. Which is why we're seeing this incredibly specific pattern right now. We're in what Gartner calls the disillusionment phase of the hype cycle. And it's important to understand what that actually means in practice.
What does disillusionment look like when you're living it?
Right now, it looks like this. First, you have peak expectations. Everyone gets excited about ChatGPT and generative AI. We need AI in our newsroom. We need AI scheduling. We need AI content recommendations. Executives mandate it. Budget appears. Vendors circle. That was 18 months ago. Then reality hits. You actually try to implement something. You discover your data is a mess. Your processes don't support it. Your team doesn't trust it. The vendor solution doesn't work the way you expected. You run pilots that go nowhere. You spend 6 months and hundreds of thousands of pounds and realise nothing's changed. That's where we are now. That's disillusionment.
What happens to organisations in this phase?
Most of them do one of 2 things. They either quietly kill the initiatives and pretend AI doesn't matter anymore. We tried it, it didn't work, let's move on. Or they become cynical. They assume AI is all hype and that no vendor actually has a working solution. Both responses are wrong. Because there's a third path, and that's the slope of enlightenment.
What's the slope of enlightenment?
It's when you stop blaming the technology and start fixing the fundamentals. You realise you need clean data. You redesign your processes. You establish governance. You bring in change management. You have hard conversations about what AI means for different teams. And you build a coordinated strategy that spans the whole organisation. That's when the magic happens. That's when you start seeing real ROI.
So disillusionment is actually an opportunity.
Completely. It's the moment when the poseurs drop out and the serious players step in. Right now, 75% of broadcasters haven't even started their AI journey. 25% are in the disillusionment trough, the ones who climb out through that trough using proper methodology. Those are the ones who win the next 5 years.
So what's the alternative?
This is what Ancast Intelligence is there to develop. And frankly, it's not sexy. It's not the kind of thing that gets announced in a press release. It's diagnostic rigor. What you need is a crack squad of advisors, call them fractional CAIOs, or diagnostic consultants, who come in and ask uncomfortable questions. Not, how do we implement AI faster? But, what is the actual state of your data? What are your real business processes? Who owns the outcome? And then they sit down and build a remediation roadmap.
A remediation roadmap sounds like admitting you've got problems.
It is. And that's exactly why most organisations don't do it. They would rather hire a vendor and hope it magically works. But the ones who do the diagnostic work first, they're the ones who actually get ROI. They're the ones moving from the disillusionment phase into the enlightenment phase.
How long does a typical diagnostic engagement look like?
You'd need a few months, depending on organisational complexity. You're auditing data architecture, process mapping, governance readiness, and cultural readiness for change. You're identifying the bottlenecks. Then you're building a phased implementation plan that's actually integrated across divisions. It's not sexy, it's unglamorous work, but that's exactly what wins in broadcast.
Why now? Why is this the right moment for this approach?
Because we're in a market window. Right now, 75% of broadcasters haven't seriously attempted AI implementation. 25% have. They're in the disillusionment trough. That means the first movers who get their foundations right, who do the diagnostic work, remediate the basics, and build integrated change management, those are the ones who are going to capture competitive advantage in the next 18 months. By 2027, this will be the industry standard. But right now, you can move before your competitors even understand the problem.
So there's an urgency to this, but not the panic kind. It's strategic urgency.
Well, that's exactly it. You're not racing to implement something broken. You're racing to implement something right. And the broadcaster who does that first, they get 3 to 5 years of competitive advantage. That's not hype. That's just first mover math.
What does a broadcaster do if they're listening to this and they recognise themselves in what we're describing?
Honest answer. Start with a diagnostic conversation. If you're a broadcast leader, a chief content officer, a chief technology officer, a facility director, anyone managing broadcast transformation, and you're looking at your AI initiatives and something feels off, feels like you're spinning wheels, then that's a signal. That's worth exploring. We have a diagnostic service specifically for this moment. It's a no-fluff audit. You get a clear picture of where you stand, what the blocks are, and a concrete roadmap forward.
And if you're not ready to do a full diagnostic,
Then honestly, just ask yourself 3 questions. 1. Do you have a unified view of your operational data across your broadcast divisions? 2. Do you have business processes designed for AI-assisted decision-making? Or are you still using 1990s approval chains? And 3. Do you have governance and override mechanisms so that humans actually trust the system? If you answer no to any of those, you're probably in the disillusionment phase, and that's actually good information to have.
because you can then do something about it.
Precisely. The disillusionment phase isn't permanent. It's just the valley between hype and reality. The broadcasters who recognise they're in it and move toward the basics, they emerge as industry leaders. The ones who pretend everything's fine and keep hoping the vendor will fix it, they're the ones still spinning their wheels in 2 years.
This has been really frank conversation about where broadcast AI actually is.
It had to be, because silence on this stuff costs people time and money. If you're a broadcast organisation listening to this and you want to have a diagnostic conversation, You can reach out through ancast.co.uk or find me on LinkedIn. We'll give you an honest assessment of where you stand. No vendor hand-waving, no hype, just broadcast reality.
Thanks for joining us on The Inside Track. We'll be back next episode with our bonus guest interview.
Until then, stay ahead of the curve.
Thanks for listening to Reinventing Broadcast. Subscribe for more on AI content and the future of media. And visit ancast.tv for more info on Ben himself, the resources, other content, and news.